She posted it while we were still technically married. That's the part everyone glosses over. That legally, financially, emotionally, I was still her husband when she took that smug little photo at some overpriced steakhouse, propped her chin on her knuckles like some bored debutante, and typed out the words that torched whatever bridge we had left. Finally dinner with a real man. She even added a steak emoji. The kind of emoji you use when you're 13 and trying to be edgy in a group chat, not when you're 41 and blowing up your marriage for a guy who still calls his fantasy football team Touchdown Town. I was sitting alone in the Airbnb when it went live. No TV, no music, just a leftover sandwich and silence. We'd agreed on space. She got the house. I got to breathe for the first time in years without hearing her passive-aggressive sighs every time I folded laundry wrong. But still, I hadn't expected that. She knew people would see it. Our friends, our coworkers, our kids. But that's what she wanted, right? She didn't just want me gone. She wanted the world to see her upgrade. She wanted applause. And for a few hours she got it. Heart emojis, fire emojis, comments from women she hadn't spoken to since college. You deserve it, queen. Yes, finally. But then something changed. About 3 hours in, someone commented. No emoji, no flirtation, just a woman, older, maybe late 30s, who tagged 2 teenage profiles and wrote, "You're not even a good dad." I remember reading it twice, like I was misinterpreting it. But no, the man in the picture, my wife's real man, was her coworker and apparently also her children's father. Her real wife had entered the chat, and that, my friend, was when things spiraled. See, I didn't comment, didn't like, didn't share. I just watched. Sat there in my rented kitchen with laminate counters and a dented toaster and watched the numbers climb. Views, shares, quote tweets, screenshot reposts on private Facebook groups for moms in our town, local gossip forums, and one subreddit that seemed to take a very personal interest in exposing homewreckers. And it wasn't just about the cheating anymore. It became a spectacle. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a loss. Not for me. She had gone loud. I would stay silent. And in that silence, people started asking questions. They started digging. Which, by the way, if you're enjoying this so far, and you're one of the 97% who listen without subscribing, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps the team keep bringing you stories like this one, and trust me, we're only getting started. Back to the show. The woman, his wife, I mean, didn't stop there. She followed up, uploaded a screenshot of a missed parent-teacher conference notification, timestamped the same night as that little steakhouse date, captioned it, "Guess who wasn't at his son's IEP meeting?" Boom. Now it wasn't just petty. It was proof. Public, brutal proof. People started piling in. This guy's a joke. Imagine being proud of ruining 2 families. Real man, real loser. Meanwhile, my phone stayed quiet. No calls, no texts. Just the occasional ding from Venmo as my soon-to-be ex paid her half of the rent on our shared Hulu account. I kept the post saved. Not because I enjoyed reading it, but because I wanted to remember that feeling. That sharp, clean cut across the chest when I first saw it. I wanted to remember it accurately, without time softening the edges, because sometimes the most effective revenge isn't about doing anything at all, it's about letting people see. By morning, the post wasn't just viral, it was feral. Someone had screenshotted the comment thread and reposted it to one of those local Facebook tea groups run by wine moms with too much time and not enough therapy. Within hours, it had been turned into a meme, a TikTok reaction montage, and, God help us all, a Twitter thread titled, "Why Real Man Culture is Killing Families." The man in the photo? Brian Myers, mid-level project manager at an aerospace contractor, married for 14 years, 2 teenage kids, dog named Clancy, annual passes to Disneyland, just a totally average suburban dad who apparently liked to play real man after hours with someone else's wife. It took about 35 minutes for someone to connect the dots. Another 20 before a LinkedIn screenshot of his company profile started circulating with the caption, "Bro's really got team player" in his bio. And still, I said nothing. But I saw it. All of it. The group chats I wasn't in anymore started leaking back to me like water through a cracked ceiling. People I hadn't heard from in years, old college friends, her cousins, my old boss, started texting, "Hey man, you okay?" And "Just saw something, wanted to reach out." That was the worst part. Not the betrayal. Not even the public circus. It was the pity, like I was some wounded animal they needed to coax out of the woods with a blanket and a soft voice, like I was broken, weak. The poor bastard who lost his wife to a sleazy coworker and didn't even get the courtesy of a heads up before the world found out. But here's the twist they didn't see coming. I wasn't ashamed. Because I didn't light this fire. I didn't post it. I didn't tag the kids. I didn't miss a parent-teacher conference and take a woman who wasn't my wife out for filet mignon. That was all them. The fire was real. The fallout was real. But the smoke, it wasn't coming from my side of the house. By the end of the second day, the man's wife, her name was Naomi, I'd find out later, posted again. This time, it was a screenshot of her email to the school principal, explaining why their children would be missing class for a few days. Underneath it, she wrote, "They didn't ask for this, but since you dragged them in, I'm taking them out. Enjoy your steak." People lost it. Now the narrative had flipped. What started as a smug little "I upgraded" post had turned into a morality referendum for the entire town. Naomi was the wounded mother lion. My wife was the home-wrecking villain. Brian was the idiot who fumbled a stable life for a woman who once cried because I bought the wrong scented dryer sheets. I didn't join the pile on. Tempting, sure. Every cell in my body itched to hit like on Naomi's posts, to quote tweet with some clever burn. But I didn't. I wasn't just staying silent, I was staying clean. My only move came late that night. I logged into our old shared streaming account and changed the profile icon on hers to a dumpster fire emoji. Petty? Yes, but subtle enough to deny if she brought it up. By now, even people from my office were whispering in the break room. I overheard one guy say, "Damn, he didn't even clap back. That's some monk-level restraint." Monk level, huh? Not quite. What they didn't know was I had copies of everything: old texts, expense reports, receipts, voice memos, even one email she sent me by mistake that included a dinner reservation under a name that definitely wasn't ours. Not that I needed any of it. The internet was doing the heavy lifting. All I had to do was keep my hands in my pockets and let them dig their own graves. And they were digging fast. On day 3, the silence became too loud for her. That's when the texts started. Not just one or two either. A slow drip at first. "Hey, can we talk?" Then a flood. "I didn't mean it like that. You're blowing this out of proportion. This is being taken out of context." Context? I stared at that one for a long time. Like maybe, just maybe, there was a parallel dimension where finally dinner with a real man meant she was out with her uncle, or a waiter, or a cardboard cutout of Dwayne Johnson. But nope, it was exactly what it looked like. A broadcasted middle finger wrapped in a wine-soaked filter and dipped in petty narcissism. Still, I didn't respond. I let her sit in the static. The next day, she escalated. Classic playbook. Switched from text to voice memos. The tone shifted too, less smug, more frantic. Her voice cracked around the edges now, that tight, trembling panic of someone who thought they had the upper hand, and now couldn't even find the table. One of her messages said, and I quote, "You know I only posted that because I was hurt you left. You ghosted your family." Interesting. Apparently moving out after calmly discussing our failing marriage, paying rent on time, and telling the kids I loved them every time I saw them now qualified as ghosting. I didn't reply. Then she showed up, unannounced, uninvited, at 9:37 p.m. I watched her through the peephole for a full minute. She stood there in a jacket she only wore when she wanted to look casually stunning, clutching her phone like it was a weapon or a prayer. The porch light buzzed above her. She knocked twice, then tried the handle. It was locked. Of course it was. She knocked again, harder. I didn't say a word. I didn't move. I just took the pre-folded paper off the entry table. Yes, I had prepared it ahead of time and slid it under the door. 10 seconds later, I heard her pick it up. A pause. Then her voice, small and brittle. "Are you serious?" "Yes, very." The note was short, just 2 lines, typed neatly and signed with my initials. "Let's keep things civil. No contact outside of council." It was amazing how fast that tone of hers switched from desperation to disgust. "You're being ridiculous," she snapped through the door. "We're adults. We can talk. This is our life, not a lawsuit." And then, just as quickly, "You really want to do this in court, with the kids involved? You think that's better?" I didn't answer. I went back to the couch, put on a documentary about orcas sinking yachts, therapeutic really, and waited until the security camera dinged, signaling she'd left the property. 5 minutes later, I got another text, just one line this time. "Wow, I didn't realize how cold you've become." That one made me laugh. Not a full belly laugh, more of a dry, cynical exhale. Cold? No. Cold was what she did when she posted that picture. Cold was tagging herself at a steakhouse with a married man while our teenage daughter followed her Instagram. Cold was letting the world treat me like an optional extra in my own life and then crying when she realized I'd stopped playing along. This wasn't cold. This was me, finally reaching room temperature. What she didn't know yet, but was starting to feel, was that I'd never been loud like her. Never needed to post to feel powerful. But what I had, and she didn't, was patience. The kind of patience that sits still long enough for someone to hang themselves with their own rope, then folds the chair they kicked away and quietly walks out the room. Turns out Naomi, the wife of the so-called real man, wasn't just angry. She was organized and thorough. Somehow, she'd gotten access to a group chat. Not just any chat, the chat. The one between my wife and her little inner circle of wine moms, work frenemies, and enablers with usernames like Margs Before Marriage and Savage Susan 42. You know the type. The thread was enlightening. There were jokes about me being emotionally constipated, comments like, "At least Brian doesn't fold his socks like a librarian," and "Girl, you deserve a man who books a reservation, not a husband who clips coupons." One of them even referred to me as ex-husband vibes, while I was still very much her current husband. But the line that really stuck with people, burned itself into the screenshots, was this gem from my wife. "He's so safe it's boring, like oatmeal. You don't marry oatmeal, you survive it." Oatmeal. That was me now. They laughed. They threw shade. They talked about how good the steak was that night and how we both needed it so bad. Naomi didn't just leak it, she curated it. She posted a series of slides, each one a cropped screenshot, captioned like a damn museum exhibit. Slide 1, meet the upgrade. Slide 2, girl talk or group delusion. Slide 3, destroying 2 families for a ribeye. The format was brutal and genius. People ate it up. It made the rounds on Reddit. A popular subreddit picked it up, one that thrives on schadenfreude and public downfalls. I didn't post it, didn't comment, didn't even upvote, but I watched the thread climb. Hundreds of comments, then thousands. The internet didn't just turn on her, it eviscerated her. She's the type who burns her house down for a selfie. This guy was her oatmeal? Newsflash, oatmeal keeps people alive. The quiet husband always wins in the end. Brian looks like he still asks his mom how to use Dropbox. And buried in the middle of the chaos, someone unearthed an old photo of us, me, her, and the kids at a park. 4th of July. She's smiling. I'm grilling. The kids are sticky with popsicle juice. It looked real. Someone commented, "This was the life she tossed away for a medium rare side piece in a JCPenney shirt." I didn't laugh, not really, but I felt something colder, cleaner, because now the betrayal wasn't confined to our kitchen table. It wasn't just whispered between coworkers or hinted at during PTA meetings. It was everywhere, public, archived, and dissected by complete strangers. Her arrogance had been flipped into spectacle. That night, she deactivated her Instagram, the same one where she used to post Monday motivation quotes and selfies of her coffee beside a hardback book she never actually read. Then went her Twitter, then Facebook, like watching a collapsing building lose floors in reverse. Poof, 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 gone. The woman who once begged for digital validation in the form of hearts and thumbs-up icons had vanished from the stage she lit on fire. I didn't gloat. I didn't throw a party. I just poured myself a drink, opened my laptop, and saved a backup of every single post, every screenshot, every apology comment, every "damn girl, why'd you do him like that?" For legal reasons, of course. I also updated the folder's name on my hard drive. It used to be insurance. Now it was just called oatmeal. The email arrived on a Thursday morning. Subject, student well-being and online conduct. It was from the school counselor, the kind of email that pretends to be gentle but lands like a loaded glove to the ribs. Polite, measured, passive-aggressive in that beige cardigan kind of way. In light of recent online activity, and to ensure the emotional safety of all students involved, we kindly ask that sensitive family matters not be discussed in public forums, as this can cause distress and disruption for children in our learning community. Translation, your circus is leaking into the classroom. I read it twice, then a third time, slower. Not because I was confused, I just wanted to feel all of it, the shame, the absurdity, the way our kids, were now part of some viral cautionary tale that started with a steak and ended with public collapse. 10 minutes later, my phone pinged. It was her. She'd forwarded the email to me with one line exactly as I expected. "This is your fault. Of course I'm the one to blame. Not the woman who posted a picture bragging about dinner with a married man. Not the woman whose new real man was benched at work pending review. Not the woman whose social media implosion now had subreddits doing psychoanalysis on her high school yearbook quotes. No, it was me. Because I hadn't rushed in to clean up the mess. Because I didn't play the dutiful husband and pretend it was all a misunderstanding. Because I let people talk. I stared at her message for a long time. Not with anger, not even with sadness, just detachment. Like I was watching a rerun of a bad sitcom I'd already seen too many times. Same script, different punchline. Instead of replying, I did something quieter, smarter. I forwarded the email, her forward included, to my lawyer. No context, no snark, just the digital equivalent of a shrug. I got a thumbs up emoji back and a note, useful, we'll include it in the narrative. That word, narrative, sounded colder than I expected, but accurate, because at this point, that's what we were inside. Not a marriage, not a divorce, a story with protagonists and villains and secondary characters who wandered in and out like confused extras, and she was still trying to control the script, still imagining herself as the misunderstood lead, the woman who just made one impulsive post that somehow spiraled into the whole world turning on her. She kept texting, "This is out of control. You could fix this if you just speak up. Why are you letting strangers decide what our kids see? This isn't who you are. You're better than this." That one made me smile. Because I am better than this. That's why I'm not playing the game. Every message she sent was like a pebble thrown into a frozen lake. Nothing cracked, nothing moved. Just the sound of desperation echoing across a flat surface she no longer had the strength to break through. I called the school later that day, asked if the kids were okay, spoke to the counselor directly. I kept my voice calm, even, apologized for the disruption, thanked them for looking out for the students. Assured them I was doing everything I could to minimize any further distraction. The counselor said, "We appreciate your discretion. Not all parents are as mindful." I didn't ask who she meant. Didn't need to. Later that night, I got one last message from my wife, just a single bubble in the chat thread. "You're weaponizing silence now. That's emotional abuse." I set the phone down, let the words float there. She wanted chaos, apologies, drama, something she could screenshot and send to her friends as proof I was the villain. She'd baited me with slander, with guilt, with pity, and now, when that didn't work, she tried shame, but I wasn't going to hand her a single word, because when someone sets themselves on fire for attention, the worst thing you can do, the cruelest, quietest thing, is not rush in with water. It's to simply watch and make sure they understand exactly who struck the match. It was bound to happen. Honestly, I'm surprised it took them this long. By the 6th day, the man's company, the aerospace firm Brian worked for, finally acknowledged the elephant tap dancing through their HR department. Someone had leaked the internal memo, then someone else turned it into a tweet. Then that tweet hit a parenting blog. From there, it metastasized. The official statement arrived mid-morning, couched in that sterile corporate language that tries very hard not to say anything and ends up saying everything. "We are aware of recent online events involving one of our employees. While we do not comment on private matters, we are committed to upholding our company's core values, which include integrity, accountability, and support for family well-being. The employee in question has been placed on administrative leave pending an internal review of potential policy violations." Boom, 1,000 likes in 10 minutes. I clicked the statement, read it twice, sipped my coffee, moved on, but the internet didn't. Reddit picked it up. So did TikTok. Instagram meme pages started doing dramatic readings of my wife's original post in fake soap opera voices over piano music. Someone edited the statement into a fake obituary for Brian's career. Another person dug up the company's family values mission video and dubbed over it with her voice from one of her old vlogs where she talked about manifesting alignment. It would have been funny if it weren't so sad. Actually, it was funny. Because now the story wasn't just viral, it had corporate legs, real-world consequences, and not for me. That evening, around 8:15, I got a voicemail. Not a call, a voicemail. She knows I won't pick up by now, probably knows I screen every attempt like TSA screens luggage left in the middle of an empty terminal, but she still sends them. And this one? It was different. No more condescension, no more passive-aggressive digs, just a rambling, shaky voice that kept trying to find solid ground and slipping deeper every time she spoke. "This is spiraling," she said. "I never wanted any of this. I thought we were just taking time. I didn't mean for it to blow up like this. We need to fix it. Please, please, let's meet. Not lawyers, just us." She paused, swallowed. I know I hurt you, I was angry. I thought you didn't care anymore. But this is everywhere. My boss asked me to take a week off. Naomi's lawyer sent a cease and desist to my email. My mother won't even return my calls. The kids are asking questions I can't answer without blaming someone. Another long pause. I don't want this to define me. Can we please just talk? Click. No tears. But she was close. Her voice had that wet edge like she was holding them back, maybe because she still thought if she held out long enough I'd step in, play the hero, wrap this up with a bow and say, it's okay, we all make mistakes. But that's the thing. This wasn't a mistake. It was a campaign. It had strategy, execution, audience engagement, and a PR rollout. The only part she didn't plan for was the collapse, the fallout, the part where people stopped clapping. She still thought this was fixable, like we could undo the thousands of shares, the memes, the screenshots. Like I'd sit across from her at some neutral cafe and say, let's go to therapy and pretend you didn't humiliate me in front of the entire digital planet. I didn't reply, didn't save the voicemail either. I forwarded it to my lawyer with a short subject line. She's spiraling. He responded, good, letter. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't even about justice. It was about gravity. She stepped off the edge, thinking she could fly, that the fall would be brief, that someone, me, Brian, the internet, would catch her. But no one did. And now she was calling on the way down, hoping to negotiate terms before she hit the ground. The email came from a local reporter I vaguely remembered from a city council scandal a few years back. Some intern-turned-anchor who specialized in human interest stories that felt just sanitized enough for evening broadcast. Subject line, story inquiry, silent husband in viral divorce fallout. I almost deleted it without opening, but I paused. Curiosity is a dangerous drug. We're preparing a segment on digital humiliation, online virality, and the impact of public silence, particularly from male partners. We're aware of your situation as it's become quite public, and would be interested in including your perspective. You don't need to speak on record. Even a quote would help contextualize the experience for viewers. Let us know. Professional, respectful, a little too clean, considering the circus it was covering. I stared at the screen for a while, imagining the version of myself that might have said yes, the man who needed his side told, who thought a televised statement might restore some dignity or win back control of the narrative. But I wasn't that man. I didn't need a camera to feel seen. The whole point of staying silent was to not turn this into a performance. She'd made it a stage play. I chose to be the shadow in the wings, so I declined, politely. No comment. I'd prefer not to add to the noise. I figured that would be the end of it. It wasn't. 2 days later, I was in line at the grocery store debating whether I had enough energy to cook dinner or if frozen pizza would be the hill I died on again when I glanced up at the small TV bolted to the corner of the checkout aisle. Muted, of course. Subtitles running beneath a stock image of a dinner table. Then they cut to her post. The post. The steakhouse photo. Her smile smug. His hand visible on the table across from her. The caption, finally dinner with a real man. Bold, sharp, unforgiving. And pinned just below it, in that perfect white Instagram font overlay, was Naomi's comment, "You're not even a good dad." Then came the headline, large across the bottom of the screen, "Silent husband, viral reckoning." My stomach dropped, not from panic, from something colder, like the moment before a wave hits you in the chest. You see it coming. You know what it's going to feel like. And still, impact. I got out of the store fast, left the cart, left the pizza, didn't even make eye contact with the cashier, who definitely recognized me. Everyone in town had seen the story, and now, thanks to the segment, even more would. At home, I watched the full piece online, 6 minutes long, slick transitions, sad piano music, a slow zoom on her post, a voiceover narrating the betrayal, the fallout, the quiet dignity of the husband who never responded. They blurred our names, but not the post, not the comment, not the company statement, not Naomi's face. And in that space, my silence became their narrative. I wasn't a person anymore. I was a concept, a symbol, the stoic man who let the fire burn and never once reached for water. But she, my wife, she was now a cautionary tale. They interviewed a psychologist midway through the segment. She talked about performative betrayal, about online self-sabotage, and how some individuals confuse public validation with actual progress. I didn't need subtitles to see what was happening to her. She had become the villain in a story she didn't write, and worse, She couldn't edit it anymore. The next day, my lawyer forwarded me a message from hers. Subject line, urgent media fallout concerns. Her attorney was hoping to speak constructively to mitigate reputational damage on both sides. Code for, please make it stop. But there was nothing to stop. Not anymore. You can't unpost a moment. You can't unspeak arrogance. And you sure as hell can't unmake a headline once the world's turned it into a rallying cry. And I wasn't going to give them anything else. They already had the only quote I needed. Finally, dinner with a real man. That's all anyone remembered. That's all anyone had to. No press release, no screaming match, no staged confrontation in a parking lot with bystanders recording on their phones. Just a manila envelope hand-delivered to her office. Inside, divorce papers, signed, dated, final. It was as quiet as an execution done with a pillow. I filed under irreconcilable differences. The lawyer said we could go fault-based if I wanted, cited abandonment, infidelity, emotional cruelty. He offered to attach screenshots, email timestamps, even social media analytics if I really wanted to twist the knife. I said no, let the world provide the context, let her post be Exhibit A, let her reflection be the courtroom. We didn't need a judge to explain what had already been broadcast in high def. Delivery was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Her office, the boutique marketing agency she bragged about launching during quarantine, was a co-working space she pretended was a downtown loft. She liked the way it looked in Instagram stories, plants, Edison bulbs, exposed brick, the perfect place to get served. A leak from HR confirmed she was there when it arrived, that she opened the envelope at her desk, that she read through the first page and her hands started shaking, that she muttered something like, "No, no, no," before walking briskly to the bathroom and locking herself in for 15 minutes. Her assistant quit that same afternoon. Apparently, she walked out after overhearing the voicemail my wife left me the night before, the one where she begged me to fix this together. The assistant, a 26-year-old named Mariah who still believed in boundaries, told HR, "I can't work for someone who treats family like that and expects me to smile through it." She left her keycard on the desk, didn't even take her plants. The office went silent after that. One of her colleagues, someone who used to send me Christmas cards, messaged me anonymously, said they were sorry, that none of them knew what was really going on, that it all just kind of happened so fast. And it did. That was the point. This entire saga had moved like a slow leak until the pressure broke the pipe. For months, maybe years, I'd been the quiet one, the agreeable one, the man who didn't push back, who listened to her spin stories at dinner parties about how Michael's just the calm in my storm, and smiled like that wasn't code for he doesn't make me feel enough anymore. But now I was the storm, and she had no umbrella. A few friends reached out to her, I'm told, offered support. One even drove over with wine and frozen dumplings. She let them in, sat on the couch, talked about how surreal it all feels, how unfair, how it spiraled. But here's what stuck out. She told them she didn't see it coming, not the divorce, not the fallout, not the moment when the man she labeled as oatmeal turned out to be the one person who had the self-control to let her implode without lifting a single finger. After the papers landed, the tone of her messages changed. No more begging, no more manipulative sighs. Now it was silence. And in that silence, I could almost hear her calculating how to spin this to her advantage, how to get ahead of it, how to claw her way back to the center of attention where the spotlight once loved her. But the problem was, no one cared anymore. The audience had moved on. The memes had dried up. Naomi had gone private. Brian was still on leave. And I was invisible again, which ironically was all I ever wanted. Not revenge, not pity, just peace. And now I had it, sealed inside an envelope that landed on her desk like a guillotine dressed in legalese. She told everyone I was too soft, too quiet, too boring. Turns out I was just waiting for the silence to speak louder than she ever could. It came quietly. 3 weeks later, long after the hashtags died and the gossip vultures found fresher meat to peck at, Naomi posted again. No fanfare, no theatrics, just a single photo on her newly reactivated account. A quiet living room. 2 kids, her kids, on a couch. One reading, one assembling a Lego set. Afternoon sunlight spilled across the carpet in long, golden lines. You could almost hear the stillness through the screen. The caption read, "Rebuilding." That was it. No subtweets, no jabs, no bitterness. But the message was clear. The wreckage had been cleared. The demolition was over. And now came the architecture of healing, of something earned. I stared at it longer than I expected to, not out of sadness, not even empathy, just recognition. She wasn't just rebuilding her life, she was rebuilding truth, one brick at a time, not for the world, not even for herself, for the kids. Of course, someone had to comment, they always do. Do you regret making it public? One anonymous account asked beneath the photo. No profile picture, just a nosy soul with time to kill. Her reply came fast, measured, cold. No, he burned his home. I just lit the match so people could see. 16 words, no anger, no apology. And that was the moment everything snapped into place. That comment was tagged, by someone else, to the original Steakhouse post. The one my wife had deleted, but that lived on in a dozen Reddit threads, archived screenshots, and reaction videos that no longer mentioned her name, but still dragged her reputation through digital glass. Naomi's words floated like a quiet plaque beneath that image, a footnote with the force of a gavel. I bookmarked it, not out of vindictiveness, not because I needed it as legal ammo. I wasn't going to use it in court or drop it into a group chat like a grenade. It wasn't a trophy, it was a reminder that sometimes justice doesn't come from noise, it comes from clarity, from someone pointing a flashlight into a burning house and saying, "This is what it looks like when you light your own match." My ex-wife never responded to Naomi's post. Of course not, she was done performing, or maybe just out of audience. The likes had dried up, the sympathy well had gone bone dry, even her own family had stopped circling the wagons. Her brother unfollowed her last week. Her cousin, a smug little leech who used to love posting couple selfies with her at brunch, scrubbed every photo from their feed. And our daughter? She asked if she could stay with me full time, said her mom needed space to figure things out. I told her she could stay as long as she wanted. No big speech, no manipulation, just a nod, a silent shift in gravity. Meanwhile, Naomi's comment kept getting reposted, turned into a quote graphic. Someone printed it on a hoodie and sold it on Etsy. Another person turned it into a TikTok voiceover and matched it with slow-mo footage of a match being struck in reverse. The internet never forgets, neither do children. I thought I'd feel triumphant. I didn't. I just felt still, like when a storm finally ends and the world smells like wet leaves and cracked pavement. No cheering, no climax, just quiet survival. In a way, Naomi got the last word, and it was better than anything I could have written. He burned his home. She lit the match so people could see. And me? I just stood there, watched it burn, and let the silence do the rest. It was late January when the email finally came, 4 months after the post, 3 since the divorce papers landed on her desk, nearly 2 since I last heard anything from her at all. No texts, no voicemails, no attempts at mediation, manipulation, or memory lane apologies. Just absence. I'd almost started believing she was done, but like clockwork, she returned, right after the holidays, once the artificial glow of cinnamon candles and forced smiles wore off. Once reality settled into her empty house like smoke that wouldn't clear. The email had no greeting, no subject line at first, just a single sentence. "Please, just tell me what I did to deserve all this." It wasn't a question. It was a plea disguised as confusion, the last thread she could tug that might unravel the silence. She wanted me to explain it to her so she could argue, debate, reshape the story in her favor, control it. But she already had. She had all the words. She chose them. She posted them. She pinned them with a smile and a wine glass and a man who hadn't seen his own children in weeks. I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I did. I knew exactly what would end this, so I opened my archive, found the original post, screenshotted it, cropped it neatly, no commentary, no snark, no arrows or red circles like the internet loves so much, just the image, untouched, like evidence sealed in a file. I replied, subject line, "You told the whole world, I just listened." Attached image, her post. Finally dinner with a real man. No body text, no signature, no second chance. I clicked send and shut the laptop. Didn't wait for the read receipt, didn't check if she replied. I already knew she wouldn't, because there was nothing left to say. This wasn't revenge, it was restraint, the kind that slices deeper than vengeance ever could. I didn't smear her, didn't scream, didn't retaliate. I just let her speak, gave her the mic, let her perform, and when the curtain dropped, I stepped out of the theater, left her with the echo. Sometimes people destroy themselves with their own words. You just have to hold the mirror steady long enough for them to see. That was the last contact, not because I was angry, because I was done, and the most devastating silence of all is the one you walk into willingly.